Hello, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining this month's rendition of the Windows 365 Ask Microsoft Anything. I am your host, Christian Montoya, and this month specifically, I'm joined by some wonderful guests. We made a lot of announcement at Ignite, and I'm just glad to be joined by some of the experts for some of these announcements. So actually, why don't we just go ahead and introduce each other? So, Andre?
Hey everybody, my name is Andre Radinger. I'm a senior program manager on the Windows 365 team, managing third-party integrations, and I'm happy to be here to talk about HDX integration that we announced with a public preview at Ignite this month.
And Robert?
Good deal. Hey, everybody. Robert Nishi here, also with the Windows 365 product team. I have a unique sort of ability and role to talk directly with customers, get some feedback, figure out what we're doing right, what we're not doing right, all the things inclusive. But for this time around, I have had an opportunity to work with Tony, who will introduce himself in a bit, but to work on stuff for the government cloud.
Yep. Thanks, Robert. Yeah, my name is Tony Checkle, and I'm on the Windows 365 product team too. I'm a program manager on the team, and one of my areas of focus was, has been on Azure government and on Windows 365 government, and we're excited to have announced that at Ignite, and here to share more with you and your audience, Cremo.
Yes, Cremo. For folks that don't know, it's a combination of my first and last name. There's a couple of Tristans and Christians on the team. So yes, exactly. But yeah, so as Andre mentioned, Andre worked heavily on the Citrix HDX Plus integration and announcement from Ignite. And then Tony and Robert worked pretty heavily on the Windows 365 government announcement at Ignite. I see that we have some questions pouring in, but I did want to just quickly recap some of the announcements that we did make. If you have your browser open, we have our Windows 365 at Ignite short link for all resources. Again, we had the Citrix and Windows 365 government. Windows 365 government is generally available as GA. The Citrix HDX Plus is in public preview, so you can look up information to enable that in your environment. We also had the public preview of the Windows 365 app. We now have our very own desktop app that you can download and preview from the store. So please go ahead and do that. It's a great experience. It's just like that same familiar web experience, but now locally on your Windows desktop. And then also we made a lot of investments in the Microsoft Intune, the Microsoft Intune portal, management portal now, with different alerts, with a lot of reports like the CPC, Cloud PC Utilization report to understand just how many of your users are actually using the Cloud PCs on a weekly basis. You can see if some folks are inactive. You also have the connection quality reports. If your users are hitting issues, you can get a good holistic view of their connection history of good or bad quality. Then also real-time health checks. And yeah, that's just a summary. But if you want to see also, we did pop the short link for all of the announcements, and you can follow up there. That's W365 at Ignite. And then take a look at those while you're here and continue to ask questions. And again, we have experts for the Citrix HDX Plus and the Windows 365 government. So we actually do have a question that's come in. First question is, I have worked in Azure DJoin Cloud PC environment, but now I'm implementing Cloud PCs. Where would I want to know exactly which way to go? Should I go Azure DJoin with our network and licenses, or should we go hybrid Azure DJoin? Robert, I'm actually going to send this to you.
Sure.
What are your thoughts here?
Wow. It's one of those answers that I hate to give, which is it depends. But it really does actually depend. The simplest way to go for a lot of these things will tend to be Azure AD Join, Microsoft Hosted Network. That's sort of our North Star goal of where we want these environments to be. It's fully managed by Microsoft. Hopefully you trust us with your information and allowing us to do all these configurations for allowing connections to go out to the internet and such. But certainly there are going to be instances where, you want to let the Cloud PC traverse back through your own networks, or even do hybrid Azure AD join, in which case then becomes HADJ, which is the question. Is it necessary, I think, is the fundamental question that you want to answer. And if not, then Azure AD join, certainly give it a try. One of the great things about Cloud PC is once you provision it, you can always kick the tires a little bit and go, no, maybe I want to do something else. It's so easy to just say, let's reprovision with hybrid Azure AD join and see if that works better for you.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like it is a matter of where you are in the journey. If you're already so accustomed to managing your physical Windows PCs in one way, then especially if you're trying to get up and running really fast, then maybe that makes the most sense, since that's what you're comfortable with. But yeah, I think with I know that back when we were first releasing this, it's just so easy to try the Azure AD join. So personally, I would push that way, but again, it just depends on your requirements.
I think I'm with you. I think I'm with you, Christian.
Yeah, I know, because Tony, is the Azure AD join is also available in the Windows 365 government, correct?
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm thinking about. Is we one of the things that we want to do with Windows 365 government is achieve feature parity across what the tools and the experiences that are in commercial and with government. And one of those is Azure AD join. And I think Azure AD join, really talks more about being cloud native and how you can take advantage of a lot of the things that and really achieve. I think you can think about potentially better cost savings when you're talking about Azure AD join and some of the dependencies that you may not have in the hybrid situation. So yeah, and with Windows 365 government in both government community cloud GCC and the government community cloud high GCCH, Azure AD join is available in both of those. So I'm with you that in terms of simplicity, and it's so easy for people to get started, and if it doesn't work out, if they need some of the scenarios that maybe that hybrid offers, then they can make that switch. Just like Robert's saying, it depends, but I'm with you, Christian, that I think Azure AD join would be the preferred option if you can do it.
Perfect. Yeah, and so Tony, I know we haven't received specific questions on government yet, but for folks that are joining the call and want to see, you said full parity with Windows commercial is really the goal, is really to have the same product, just happens to be in the government cloud. Where can people go take a look at what the government offering offers, and how it compares to the public offering?
Yeah, so I think that we have an AK link for Windows 365 Gov. So ak.ms.win365gov right over there. That's where people can go, and that's the starting point really to learn a little bit more about it. And we've got trials. The trial availability just came out yesterday. So qualified organizations in the government, government agencies, contractors that qualify for the government community cloud and government community cloud high, they can now get trials to do POCs and pilots, and roll out using Azure AD join. So
Nice.
That's that is the place to start, right over there, and learn more there. And I think that there's that place will take you to a bunch of the other things that we have around blogs and other information about what specifically happens with in the government cloud, because there are specific requirements that we've had to meet around regulatory and compliance, and you can learn more about the specifics of what regulatory and compliance requirements we've met, what bars we've met through that site.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Tony. So we do have another question. I think this goes back towards the configuration. It says, how about group policies? Should I use configuration profiles with Intune, as we already have Intune in place and Autopilot in place? Should I put these devices in a separate OU if we go the hybrid Azure AD join route, where there are no policies applies and then policies begin getting applied from configuration profile? So I think just for one, yes, you should definitely use the configuration profiles. We hope that all of the management of your PCs, physical or cloud PCs, can be done, from the cloud, from Intune, and device configuration is the way to do that. So yes, you should do that. Regarding the OU placement, and actually, Robert, maybe this is back to you since you've worked with some customers. What's the guidance there for OUs?
It's an interesting bit. If you are in an environment that you've always used group policies and organizational units to sort of configure, control things in your on-premises environment, that might be sort of the first place to go. Rather than going into the what should you do and OU this and that, one of the first things that I do want to mention is if you're already in Intune, do an output of your group policies and run it through group policy analytics. And what that'll allow you to do is to understand what policies exist on premises today and what the equivalent of it is in MDM. So in the CSPs that we provide, what that'll allow you to do then is to configure similar properties or similar behaviors through configuration profiles, and then let that take place and essentially give the end user experience, whether you're on premises or in the cloud, however you're managing it, applying that policy to have the same experience. One additional bit is if you're running both of them at the same time and there's a conflict, there is a configuration policy called MDM wins over GPO. By default, group policies will always win when there's a conflict. However, if you want to be more cloud native and allow for those configuration profiles to take precedence, then make sure that profile is also set as a configuration. And then moving your device objects between OUs to where it's applied, where it's not applied. You can still play around doing that, but you can rest assured because you have MDM wins over GPO that at the end of the day, everything you set from Intune is always going to take precedence, even if there is a conflict with whatever you have on group policy.
Got it. Yeah, lots of details. I know that there's a lot of complex management with the OUs and group policies, and obviously I know that Microsoft Intune is investing on making it easy for you long term to fully move over. I really appreciate those tips, Robert. And actually, something you did say with the SBS, the security baselines. I did want to do a brief shout out that and a reminder for folks that Windows 365 has a security baseline in Intune, just like Microsoft Edge. And other, I think there's a Windows one, but we have our Windows 365 security baseline. So definitely, if you're starting from scratch, or go check that out. It has a lot of settings with secure defaults that you can apply fairly quickly to your cloud PCs. So go check that out. Okay, so we have a question from Carlos. When will Teams on Windows 365 reach feature parity with Teams on Citrix? We use ultra-wide screens, and inability to do application sharing is a major issue for us since our entire screen is not legible. When we asked this question at Ignite last week, the Teams team pointed us in your direction. While we otherwise love our cloud PCs, we really, really need application sharing in Teams. So that's a great question. I know that. Yeah, because I know that we're working hard to do that, to make sure that all the capabilities in Teams, again, are surfaced in either your physical PCs or cloud PCs. I'm not sure. Is anyone here able to answer more?
Yeah, that one specifically, I don't have an answer to. I think where's a great place for us to also understand this question. If you've already kind of shot the question over to the Teams team at Ignite, and they said, talk to the Windows 365 folks. There are feedback places that you can go to, which I'm sure will get put up here a little bit, but give us that feedback through those channels as well so that we can capture that feedback and make sure that we're talking to the Teams team alongside us and making sure that we're hitting those types of scenarios as well as we work towards parity. Yeah, there we go, feedback.
Exactly. Yeah, the feedback will go back to us, and we can and we can actually track it and convert to things that we can track on the engineering side. So really, that is a great place to go. I guess speaking of Citrix, I wanted to actually, Andre, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the Citrix HDX Plus. Can you tell us a little bit more about what this integration is, and how, and basically what that experience would be like for for users?
Yeah, sure. So this month at Ignite, we announced Windows 365 integration with Citrix HDX Plus for Windows, which brought HDX protocol integration and all the benefits of HDX to Cloud PCs. What we've heard from our customers is that, that a lot of them that are existing Citrix customers would love to keep using Citrix protocol because of there are a lot of security policies and various configurations they can use. They're used to, and it has a better performance in the low bandwidth environment, for example, and that's a common scenario for many customers. So we teamed up with Citrix to bring that integration to live, and we brought it up. So it's a very simple integration. We try to make it as simple as possible. And from IT pro perspective, since you asked, Christian, I can briefly talk about two different perspectives. One is the IT pro and the admin perspective. The other one is end user perspective. From the IT admin perspective, it's we try to make it as simple as possible. In Intune, it's literally a single click to enable communication integration with Citrix from your Windows 365 environment or tenant. And then you go to Citrix Cloud, and there's AKMS link to learn more. Thank you, Robert. And then you go to Citrix Cloud, and from the Citrix portal, Citrix also added additional new nodes to manage specifically Windows 365 environment. And three simple steps you need to do, actually two simple steps you need to do, is to connect your Azure ID tenant and to connect to Windows 365. Once you do that, at that point, you established connection between your Citrix tenant and your Windows 365 tenant. Then you add users, assign users Citrix license, and there you go. That's provision. As soon as you assign licenses, that information is sent back to Windows 365, and users' Cloud PCs are provisioned with HDX protocol, and HDX agent is automatically installed on their Cloud PCs. This is all done in the background without the need from the admin or user to do anything. It's all done automatically. One thing to keep in mind at that point is that user will always use HDX without option to use RDP from that point on until deprovisioned or license expired or something like that. From the end user experience, users have options to either use Windows 365 portal to connect to Citrix, because their traditional opening browser will now become open in Citrix, and users will start going to Citrix Workspace to connect from there. Or users can use a Windows 365 workspace, either web or native client, to open their Cloud PCs using HDX protocol. It's connecting via the Citrix gateway and connecting to the Cloud PC that way. Again, all the benefits of having your dedicated machine with the resources and everything is here for Windows 365 Cloud PCs, using all the beauty of HDX protocol, again, with advanced security policies, with optimizations for audio, video, working in low bandwidth environment. And that is really great. We are currently in a public preview, and it's open to everybody. So I'm really happy to invite everybody to definitely try, join, and provide us feedback in one of the links.
Feedback. Perfect.
And that's definitely something we hope, and looking forward to hear from our customers about the experience and how it goes.
Thanks, Andre. Yeah, we have one more question on that Citrix HDX Plus. It says, so one of the questions, or one of the follow-ups, was, I heard that HDX Plus for Windows 365 Enterprise is only available for standard commercial customers and not available for those who have a CSB based tenant or purchasing from a reseller.
That is correct currently. So that is correct during the public preview, or at least part of it. We are working on Citrix to clarify that and to see how we can improve that. As we always work to improve the customer experience. So stay tuned for more information on that. Today, that is correct for the public preview at the moment. But again, we are working towards opening it wider, obviously, to make it easier for CSP customers as well to take benefits and take advantage of this integration.
Okay, cool. Thanks. And Andre, actually, I think, am I correct in saying that you have a technical takeoff session next week for the Citrix integration?
Yeah, thank you for the marketing, Christian, here. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's a technical takeoff session. And my good friend and colleague Matt and I actually recorded the session, and we'll be delivering that session next week with a deep dive, which will show you and demo all the integration points and end user experiences that I talked about here.
Perfect. Yeah, not to leave you out, Tony and Robert, I think you also have one for government.
Yeah, we do. We have a setup and configuration. We're joined with a couple of our colleagues from the field to talk about some common questions and concerns from customers. So we go into some of the details around Windows 365 government. There's a couple demos. Robert does a great job talking about our architecture, both from an admin and user perspective. So yeah, please look for us there at the technical takeoff.
Perfect.
Yeah, definitely join us.
Yeah, I'm also gonna. Yeah, I also am gonna maybe toot my own horn here. I also have a session for technical takeoff next week for Windows 365 security best practices, where myself and Ankur Biswas go over some of the platform security defaults that we have in Windows 365 and other additional suggestions on how to keep your environment more secure. So the technical takeoff is next week. We have, I think, a total of 9 sessions for Windows 365. You see the banner at the bottom, the ak.ms/technical takeoff. I believe the schedule's already released, so really, choose your sessions, join us, and we'll be happy to dive into all the details in these sessions.
Yeah, definitely. There's a bunch on Intune as well and other Windows topics. I mean, I've talked a lot about Intune stuff already in this AMA. You might get a few of those answers in those sessions as well at Technical Takeoff.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So let's see. We do have a question from Brandon. I work in a library, and we are interested in configuring public computers in a kiosk mode so that the workstation automatically logs into Windows and presents users with a limited set of restricted applications. Can this be done fully in AAD? So it doesn't seem like there's a Windows 365 component. It seems like a kiosk mode, potentially with Intune.
Yes.
So Robert, I think you probably again have most experience here in terms of customer setup and scenarios.
100%. The scenario there is, so yeah, one of the great things about Windows in general is that we do have a basically secure browser or a kiosk mode type of thing to be available. It basically locks down your PC or the Windows experience to very select things, whether it be single app or multiple apps. It sounds like in this case, you're looking for it to be a lockdown situation, but with availability of a few apps, maybe a few links. That is a configuration you can actually push down to a Azure AD join only device through policies in Intune. And effectively, once that takes on, you can either have users log in or just click on a button to log in. Once they do the login process, it opens in that secure and kiosked session effectively until you log out. And you can do it that way. Now, if the ask here is, can we do that? And one among those things be, Windows 365 that it launches to? I think we do have a blog out there that talks to how to do that. I don't know exactly what that is at the moment, but we wrote one out a few months ago, I think. So you might be able to do a quick search on Windows 365, Cloud PC, Kiosk, and find out how to do it that way as well. In that case, then it becomes a lockdown to a Cloud PC situation, which I don't know if that really would do much for you, but it is a thing that you might be able to do.
Yeah, I was thinking it could be where, they're trying to extend the lifetime of some of their hardware, right? This might be a way for them to do it.
Yeah, and maybe I'm just reading too much in the details here. I saw at the very end of the question, it said, can this be done fully in AAD? So I also, not just Azure AD join, but can this be an Azure AD only, Azure AD P1 only offering, or do you also need Intune? I think what you're saying, Robert, is that you would need to deploy it via Intune, since Intune is actually, our management that would lock those settings for the device.
That is the configuration mechanism. It's not impossible to do, I don't think. So one of the ways that you get a device into a specific mode is one way is to do it using provisioning packages. So you might be able to do that in a provisioning package, put in a USB stick, shove it onto a device, and make sure that reads in and goes directly into a kiosk mode. That might actually be a thing that you might be able to do. Honestly, haven't tried it, but logically, it sounds like it might work.
Yeah.
But if you want the end device to be managed and then also to configure that control into going into kiosk, definitely do it through Intune and do it while Azure AD and Azure AD joined device to be able to do that. AAD only.
Yeah, because even the provisioning package, either there's the UI through the store app, or otherwise it's just actually going to take Intune knowledge anyways of knowing where all those settings are and all the UI stuff. So so likely still through Intune, but it looks like it may not be impossible. Got it. Well, again,
impossible doesn't mean you should do it.
That is true. So we have a question on the connectivity reports that we also announced at Ignite. So what is the expected delay for sync sessions in the connectivity report? Does I think it's anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. But I think once the signals start coming in, they'll be pretty reliable once that happens. I don't know if anyone has any more details, but I think there's just a slight delay.
Yeah, typically up to 24 hours is the standard for those types of delays that occur. That's usually the maximum. Some of the reports, I'm not sure specifically to that report, but some of the reports that you can see within the Intune blades and or in endpoint analytics types of reports, some of them are as short as maybe 8 hours or even shorter, but typically the longest you'd have to wait is about 24 hours.
Yeah, and we have that short link here for the W365 connectivity health. And I believe that points to the blog going into more details about both the new reports, the connection quality reports, and also the Cloud PC utilization reports.
Yeah, that is one of the things that you were talking about. I was really excited about, because as I've talked to so many customers over the months at this point still, but as I talk to many customers, that's one of the things that I get asked a lot about. Like, I want to know, we're rolling out Cloud PCs in our environment. I'm not sure if everybody's using it. They say they are, but are they really? Here's a way for you to understand how much users they're getting out of it. Are you making the right investments? Are they using it more or less? Is it because performance is okay, not so good, really good? Whatever the case may be, there's enough data points there that you can cross-reference to make some really interesting discoveries about how are people using it. Are they making good use of it? And it's interesting for us too internally, because it's one of those things every week we know internally our usage gets reported on and go, you're not using it so much anymore. And I go, I wish customers had the ability to do this. And I'm really, really stoked that, you, the customer, are now going to have the ability to sort of have that discussion and conversation and feel sometimes a little bit challenged when
Well,
they call you out.
I feel like it's a good combination. I feel like I know that there was so much just knowing from the folks on my team. I know that there's so much work on the back end to actually get all that data up, visualized in a way that's useful. But it just sounds like those two reports marry each other, because one, it's are you being able to use it every day for the users that are expected to be using it for the full working day, like are they using it for that, as opposed to they're using it for 1 hour a day. But then two, like for those users, are they having that desired experience? Are they constantly getting, I think the metrics are under 100 milliseconds or under 120 milliseconds. Is that good latency? And then there's like this upper bound threshold of higher where it's bad, and it gives you the visibility to dive in and make sure the users that you want to provide Cloud PCs that are going to be using it every day are actually having that good experience every day.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that I think was included in Ignite when Mechanics video that was released with our friend Scott, when he was talking about not only having all this information, but then being able to take action based on it. When users are not actively using their Cloud PC, they might be on vacation or something. How can you resize them to save cost? When you see the user that's constrained, the performance is not there, you can upsize and stuff like that. How can you take action based on all this? It's really getting, we're really providing some great information, and also the ability to take action on that information, which I think is just amazing.
Yeah. So please, if you have any more questions on that, any of the admin side experiences, again, we posted the specific blog link for the connectivity. I did want to actually do a quick call out for the updates and the resize capabilities. As part of the cloud optimized IT management features that we have, we've had regular resize, where you can resize a Cloud PC up in terms of, I guess, any of the three configuration options, whether it's the vCPU, the RAM, or the OS storage. So we've had that for a while now. And this month is when we released the resize for downsize. So as long as you're not changing the OS storage, let's say 256 gigs of OS storage, you can resize down from, let's say 8 vCPUs to 4 vCPUs, or 16 gigabytes of RAM to the 8 gigabytes of RAM. Mostly because we want to make sure that you don't lose any data, your users don't lose any data. We don't accidentally do some sort of disk compaction that does lose data. So that's something we're very, very wary of, and not something we want to risk for you. But vCPU and RAM is something that you can resize down. So definitely go try that out. And just for the folks listening in, we know we've still heard a lot of requests for being able to support resize when you assign Cloud PCs, assign/provision Cloud PCs using group-based licensing. So we still hear that. We're still figuring out the requirements, still working through that. But we hear you. And I think there's still an item. I think there's still some feedback items in our W365 feedback. So keep that input coming. Again, all the new features, all the plus ones, they do help us prioritize. But as we're talking about resize, I want to make sure we acknowledge that. We know that that's a challenge for some customers. Okay, so let's see. We have another question from Davina. Are there any plans for SSO from logging into the Windows 365 service into the Cloud PC? So that is actually very near and dear to my heart. If you follow both Windows 365 and Azure Virtual Desktop, the Azure Virtual Desktop team has released the single sign-on into public preview. So that's available if you manage AVD objects and you have an Azure subscription and whatnot. There is additional work that we need to do to enable single sign-on, essentially because we use Azure Virtual Desktop for our connectivity platform, and so we have to essentially take that, enable it, provide an easy way for the endpoint admin to turn on that setting. So are there plans? Absolutely. It is also on our roadmap. If you go to the ak.ms/w365 roadmap, that links to our public roadmap alongside all the other M365 offerings. So that's there. So yeah, so definitely plans. Yeah, exactly. And so the plan here is to support the Azure D join, Cloud PCs. As Robert and Tony mentioned, it's Azure D join has a lot of benefits. In this case, because that single sign-on is Azure AD token based, and Azure AD join Cloud PCs go directly to Azure AD for authorization for logon. It's really simple. There's no other prereqs that you have to do in your Active Directory or Azure Active Directory tenant. You would just turn on the setting, so that way those Cloud PCs turn on single sign-on, and your users connect. There's more complexity when it comes to hybrid Azure AD join Cloud PCs and using single sign-on to those. But the Azure AD join Cloud PCs, no prereqs. It'll be really simple and easy. And so that's what will be coming very soon. So great question. Again, near and dear my heart, since I love and am a nerd about identity and also security. So we have another question from Carlos. Going back to the kiosk experiences, when is Windows 365 boot coming out? Does anyone have anyone able to talk to that?
I don't know if we have a specific timeline that we can speak to. One of the things that's exciting to our road getting there, though, is one of the things that Christian introduced a little bit earlier, which is the public preview now of the Windows 365 client app. The way I talk about things like boot to cloud and or switch or all these features that's been discussed of things to come in the future, all of it comes as an advent of that Windows 365 client app being there, right? And ultimately that becoming generally available at some time in the future. But yeah, all those things also in development should give you some information on when that's gonna be ultimately coming. Public roadmap that was mentioned earlier should at some point give you some timelines on when that you can expect it. But I think one of the indicators that you can look for is when Windows 365 client app goes now from public preview, ultimately at some point GAs, then you can start asking now, when is it coming? And I think then we'll have better answers for you in terms of how much later or sooner it's going to come.
Yeah, and I know that we have the in development link here. I think just for the folks on the joining us, typically what we'll do is we'll have we'll have a longer term roadmap where you can start seeing what's expected and the general timeframes, and then as we actively are developing it to kind of give you the confidence, it says it's coming out in a couple months. It's actually in development right now. So that's kind of the staging. Is roadmap is general long term, and then this in development is a lot more near term. So when you see it posted there, typically it's within a couple months that you'll see it on the what's new when it's actually live. So yeah, exactly. I love that 3 phases. It's great.
Keeping me on my toes.
Let's see if we have any questions. So we don't have specific questions right now. I kind of want to go back to these end user experiences because we were just talking about boot coming up. Andre, back to the Citrix HDX Plus. So from the end user, can you tell me a little bit more about where they'll be able to see and connect to their Cloud PCs? Can they still launch it from their the Windows 365 web portal, or do they only use the Citrix clients, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. Customers can still use Windows 365 portal to access their Cloud PCs. They will not be able to launch Cloud PCs, not at this point at least, directly from the Windows 365 portal. But their experience will change once the Cloud PC is provisioned with the Citrix HDX license. So customers will their experience will change in a way that previously open in browser button at the Windows 365 portal will switch to open in Citrix button. They will also see the change in the download section, because once your Cloud PC has been provisioned with the Citrix license, the download section will switch from downloading RDP clients for various platforms. You will now have Citrix Workspace clients for various platforms, including Android, iOS, Mac as well. So all platforms, all supported platforms will be there, mobile and desktop. So opening Citrix from Windows 365 will actually take you to the Citrix Workspace environment. And from there, you will run your Cloud PC and start your Cloud PC. One thing I think it's worth mentioning, because talking to customers over the last couple of weeks since we announced publicly the public preview, is once we connect Azure tenant and or Windows 365 tenant with a Citrix tenant, obviously Azure AD is that identity manager at that point, and managing communication between these two tenants. Can we still use RDP for some of our clients and merge some of them to HDX, to Citrix? And it's totally possible. So you can kind of mix and match. You can have a subset of your customers or users assigned HDX license, and they will actually from that point start using HDX protocol. You can keep subset of your users on RDP, and it's perfectly valid. So you can have mix of both. It's just that, as I mentioned before, once you assign HDX license to a user, that user's Cloud PC will start using HDX protocol for connectivity. Another important thing to mention here is that you can still enable RDP for troubleshooting. If there is any issue with connecting to your Cloud PC using HDX protocol, you might want to connect via RDP for troubleshooting that HDX connection, where something wrong with the connection, with agent, etc. So adding admin to, or a user to a local admins group in Intune will allow RDP connection, so you can use RDP client to connect to your machine, to your Cloud PC using RDP protocol at that point.
Got it. Yeah. So you mentioned that essentially it's for the user. It's kind of one user, for any given user. It's one connection experience, essentially based off if they have that Citrix license or not.
Absolutely.
So that hopefully that sounds simple enough to me. Obviously, I am an innocent bystander, so I don't know how license management is actually done. But it makes sense to me.
Yeah, it is really simple, and I'm again. I can point you to technical takeoff next week. Take a look at the session. It's really great reference for anybody interested to learn more or to have a clear guidance on how to set up the integration. What is the end user experience? It's gonna be great reference to learn about it and to see how simple it really is. We really tried. Teaming up with Citrix, we really tried, and I think we achieved that simplicity and really made it simple for IT admins and for users to set up the integration, definitely to use it as well.
Perfect. Yeah, and I know that a lot of our integration was definitely, like you mentioned, enabling it from, on the tenant side, hooking up the two services. We do have one more question that says, what type of policies can I apply with the Citrix integration? Are those applied on the Citrix side or the Windows 365 side? Do you have any insight on this, Andre?
Yeah, we're still during the public preview. We will be working on additional features and policies availability there. We are currently in a phase. The policies are applied on the Windows 365 side, so we are applying them. But we'll provide more information at the GA time on types of policies and exact creation of them and using them.
And just to confirm, when you're creating these Cloud PCs, do you still go through the provisioning policy in the Windows 365?
Yeah, absolutely.
Experience?
You go
Okay.
to the provision policy, you create a policy, you assign groups of users there, select the sizing and SKU that you want to use, and that's provisioned to your users. So
Okay.
you still go through the same Cloud PC provisioning as you normally would. And after that or before that, whether you sign HDX license before or after that, it'll be provisioned with HDX. But the process of creating the provisioning the Cloud PCs, assigning them to users is exactly the same as without Citrix.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. Thank you, Andre.
Thank you.
Let's see. We have a question from Victor. Do we have any plans on improving performance on Windows 365 from one region to another? For example, using a Cloud PC in US East 2 from Japan. Any best practices to apply today? So I guess the question is, if you're connecting from, maybe further away, from your Cloud PC, than what your admin had set up from where you are physically.
Right. I think that speaks to a little bit of some of the features that we are currently working on, which is for an admin, if you know the user is going to be somewhere else for a good duration of time or are moving for whatever reason, that ultimately will have an ability to move Cloud PC from one region to another. I think that's what it is. Or is it to a... Yeah,
that's
right. I think that's one of the things that we're working on, and that might be one way to go about it. Another one that might ultimately make its way, and I think it's one of those things that we keep discussing on how that would come to be, but it's where, rather than waiting for the admin to take that action, if it's common enough that and they start to realize this user is always logging in from somewhere that's completely different from where it's provisioned, to let some sort of AI mechanisms to do that move for you. But I think that's much further out in terms of planning and thought through, and like, wouldn't it be nice if type of thing for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, I know we want to build in and make it as simple as possible to. So obviously, you as the endpoint IT admin make a lot of the decisions and are specifically choosing specific places. But we also, I mean, we want Windows 365 to cater to those admins that don't have all the Azure details, that aren't setting up networks, and so. I think the end goal is to make it as easy for you as possible. That just says, wherever the user is, just put the Cloud PC there. I think, okay, maybe they're starting on US West Coast, like some of us, and then maybe they're on an extended business trip. I think long term we want to do that. For right now, there is the reprovision, but we are looking at ways to actually essentially just move over the Cloud PC without fully deprovisioning and reprovisioning again. So we're still looking at that, but right now it's just right now knowing where your users are. Okay. Question: is it possible to use Windows Insider builds as custom images? I want to do some testing, but when I try, the upload fails with the error, your image version is not supported. Upload a single session, Windows 10 Enterprise or Windows 11 Enterprise image. So that's a great question. I know I don't think we have the experts on the call to answer. I know that as we release new Windows 10 and Windows 11 versions, like the 22H2 versions, that those are available to upload as custom images. Unless anyone else on the call has any more info, we might have to go back to our team. But also, for whoever posted this, feel free to post it at our Windows 365 tech community page, and that way we can have more of a discussion, and we can have those folks join. So that's going to be the W365 TC. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we'll if you can post it there, we'll continue that discussion there. Yeah, so community / Windows 65. Perfect. So different question. I've run into few situations where having a restart option from the start menu would be nice. Instead of restarting from the web UI, that's the windows365.microsoft.com. I see some are setting registry keys to add this feature, essentially add the restart button back into that start menu, and this can be pushed via Intune using PowerShell with the proactive remediation. I was wondering if this option is available in the settings catalog of a device policy or somewhere else in Intune. So that is actually a great question. At least for my knowledge, I don't know if there's anywhere in device configuration that sets this, primarily because I know the setting of the restart option being available in start menu or not start menu is specific for remote desktop sessions, terminal server sessions. So I don't know if that actually gets exposed in settings catalog. Any other thoughts here? I don't know.
I don't think so. I'd have to go looking for it. I'd assume I would imagine the individual who wrote the question has done a bit of a few searches in the catalog and went, I don't see it. Is there a way? That would be my guess. But certainly you can start by doing a search in the catalogs there and see if it's there. I wouldn't think that it would be.
It's a great point for our feedback, and vote for it.
Right.
At the
very least, to make it simple to make that change in the configuration would be, how do we execute it without having to do PowerShell scripts, I think is a great ask to have.
And whether that's a specific Windows 365 feature, or this is very related to our Windows 365 experience. So we'll be able to bring that back into the engineering teams as well. So let's see. We do have 8 minutes left, so we probably have time for a couple more questions. I'm trying to see if we missed any here.
I think there was one quick one around what are the differences between Windows 365 Government and Windows 365 Enterprise, which is a very broad stroke question, but one that I think Tony would be happy to answer.
I'd be happy to address that one. Yeah, no kidding. So, at the top, I talked about how, one of our goals is to have feature parity across, government and enterprise, Windows 365 Government and Windows 365 Enterprise. And that is one of our core principles. Now, one of our other core principles is, and an important thing is that we adhere to all the requirements to achieve the, things like FedRAMP High and CGIS and the other certifications that we have for Windows 365 Government. And that's probably really the number one thing, because trust and the fact that our government customers can trust Windows 365 to meet those bars is really kind of job number one. So there's going to be some differences, primarily around areas where we may be doing previews for some features that are in enterprise, and those preview features we may not have clicked all the buttons and ticked all the boxes on compliance. So those things may be waiting until they get to GA in on the enterprise side, and then they'll be available in the government side. And if you go to that AKA link that we had for Windows 365 Government, I bet it's going to pop up here in a second. You'll be able to learn more about where those specific differences are, and really what we're striving for is to keep that list to a minimum. As we get things to GA on the enterprise side, it'll show up for our government customers.
Perfect.
So thanks for asking that, though, because I think that has been we've now been available in market for a little over 2 weeks, and I've already had that conversation several times. So that's a common question about how are we keeping things in sync across these different clouds. And this is something that these customers, they'll see that we release something on the commercial side. How do we get that over to the government side?
Yeah, and Tony, I know that we, internally, we're pushing all our engineering teams to think about how do we how do we have these two environments be the exact same? And maybe this is a call out for you all, for you admins, customers, definitely, keep nudging us as well. Because especially if there is a feature that's not quite available in government yet, especially again, if we see your feedback that it's crucial for your deployment or for your environment, we do want to make sure that we take into account, the urgency and importance from your side as well. So please nudge us. We're trying to nudge ourselves internally, but anything helps for us to prioritize and make sure we get the right features out.
Yeah, as a product manager, the voice of the customer helps tremendously in terms of how do we get the right prioritization on where we're, what we're going to do and what we're going to get into the government product. So I agree completely.
Let's see. So we have one question, and we'll see if this is, we'll see if we do this question one more. But one question from Davina, tacking on to Victor's question, which Victor's question was about the regions. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we can't move the user's desktop to a different region because of the latency of the PC to a specific app. With that, is there any ability to change, maybe the graphics of the image or in the RDP client to help with some of those latency problems?
I don't know if short path things help with parts of the experience as far as connectivity is concerned. Absolutely, closeness of where the application lies and the CPC lies, I think that has a large impact. But if it's mostly about the end user's host to the Cloud PC connection, the RDP Short Path that we made available might be part of what makes that experience or that connection a little bit better, regardless of whether you're coming from really close to region on your host or if you are traveling for a while and trying to connect from another location. That's about the only one that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, because at that point, there's the physical distance that you have to traverse. Yep. But yeah, you're saying the RDP Short Path, which enables essentially the UDP transport of the protocol, making it more lossy and not having it stack up against itself if there's a connection issue. That definitely helps. I believe you have documentation somewhere on what's required for that. So whether you're using a Microsoft hosted network or you're bringing your own network, then I know that we do have some information there on that RDP Short Path. So at least you can enable that to improve the latency a little bit. I don't know if there are any controls within the RDP side, maybe to save on the bandwidth to maybe have the display change the compression or anything like that. More on the protocol side, I would have to get back to the team to see what options there are. But yeah, what Robert mentioned, the RDP Short Path is probably the first stab at that, just because the UDP can really help that connection latency compared to TCP.
Another good thing for feedback too, because I think that's a great thing. It's a great idea.
Yeah. So Davina, I think that's a great thing. So when the W365 feedback, and if we need to provide more guidance on our documentation, that's also feedback we can take and run with. Yeah. So, please feel free to add that there, and we'll take a look.
Yeah, there's some good scenarios there.
Okay. Well, we're wrapping up at the end of the hour. So we're gonna just kind of wrap up, so we don't take too much longer. But really appreciate all the folks that were joining today. For all the folks that asked questions, like Davina, Victor, Carlos, Nick, everyone that asked questions, thank you so much. And please, two call outs. One, we had a Windows in the Cloud episode that went live yesterday. That again covered a lot of the Ignite announcements and all the details there. I think the Windows in the Cloud maybe even referenced our mechanics video that went at Ignite. But lastly, again, technical takeoff. The links below. That is next week. We have 9 sessions, including sessions from all of us here, from me, myself, and my guests. So please join us, whether it's for Windows 365 or Intune or Windows. We would love to see you there and get your feedback. So with that, again, thank you. Have a great rest of your October, and we hope to talk to you all soon.